questions that we hope we can answer and provide some clarity on tonight regarding our return to learn plan for this fall. As you may have seen last night, our Board of Education voted to approve our return to learn plan in the format that we're going to present here tonight. And we know we communicated with you just not too long ago that West Bloomfield High School specifically will be coming back in the fall to remote learning. And we're going to go through the details of what that's going to look like, how that's going to be different than what you experienced in the spring, and also what the differences are between our remote learning and the Lakers Online program. So just a quick preview of what we're going to cover, and I'm going to turn it over to Ms. Barish, who's going to get us started.
Perfect, thank you. Oh, so he's already introduced our panelists for this evening, so if you want to go to that next slide, Mr. Pierce. So for those of you who've been part of our webinars, you know that these are all the considerations that we've had to really look at and work with our EA and obviously our parents and our administrative groups, our classroom to cloud learning teams, and our Board of Education. And we've had to make sure that in every scenario, we are taking these things into account to make sure that we're making the best decisions that we can for our students and for our staff and for our families. And so we want to make sure that you understand that this is a multifaceted, really kind of plan and roadmap in order to get to what we're going to do in the fall. And so tonight we're going to talk about those kind of key individuals who've been involved in the planning. And again, like Mr. Pace said, really what's going to be the difference between Lakers Online and what is going to really be our in-person or our online instruction for West Bloomfield High School. I'm just going to let you know real quick, I see people raising their hands. We are not going to call on people out of the audience tonight. You're going to get a link to an email where you can fill out a Google form and ask your question. That'll be monitored by the high school administrative team and obviously my office as needed. So we are not going to call with people out of the attendees at this point in time. And also, we're going to try to answer your questions within this presentation. There are a lot of nuances. There are schedule questions. There are, when are we going to know what our teacher is going to look like? When are we going to be able to pick up all sorts of things? We're going to talk a lot about that tonight. So we ask that you listen to the presentation. And that if we don't answer your question, we come back and you fill out that Google form at the end that we'll send out with a link, and then you're able to ask that question and someone will get back to you. So we will not be calling on people that are in attendance tonight. It will just be presentation with panelists and then the opportunity to ask questions via the Google form at the end. So moving on, Mr. Pace, thank you. So a lot of questions about what's the difference between Lakers Online for my high school student versus coming back and being in West Bloomfield High School's online experience. So we want to make sure that we talked about that tonight. No differently than what you're going to experience at West Bloomfield High School is that Lakers Online will be taught by our teachers. So West Bloomfield teachers, West Bloomfield curriculum, additional supplemental materials, all those sorts of things. Access to our specials and our electives. And I'm going to talk a little bit right now about some things that you probably have noticed in the course scheduling guide. One is that Earth Science, which is a course that many of our students are taking, was inadvertently left out of the course scheduling guide. It will be there. So Earth Science will be offered. So that's something that you need to know. I am meeting with the Fine Arts Department on Thursday to review potential course offerings in the Fine Arts Department, what makes sense in Lakers Online, which will be very different than what makes sense for the West Bloomfield High School students. So we will be making that decision on Thursday as well. And then there are just some classes, quite frankly, that don't transfer well to a completely virtual setting like Lakers Online, different from some opportunity that you're going to have at West Bloomfield High School. So we want to make sure that you are continuing to look at that course scheduling guide and understand that we are kind of making modifications. Another thing that you should know is, and we'll talk about schedule in a minute, but that the schedule request that your child submitted in the spring will be what we start with when we schedule for Lakers Online. So there are obviously core classes that all students have to have in order to meet Michigan Merit Curriculum and West Bloomfield High School graduation requirements. We will start with those courses first. We'll use exactly what they requested in the spring and begin to build that into your child's courses in Lakers Online. So if they're scheduled to take English 9, they're scheduled to take Algebra 2, they're scheduled to take World History, they're scheduled to take a number of other courses, whether they're taking biology, those will all be scheduled. So we'll start that right away. If we run into roadblocks and you've chosen Lakers Online, then we'll make sure that we pick up the phone, we give you a call, and we make sure that those schedules are in place. So we wanted you to know that it will greatly mimic what you're going to see in West Bloomfield High School as far as our online options are at this point in time. But so there are some key differences, and we'll talk about timing and the commitment that you're making if you go to Lakers Online. Mr. Pace, if you go to the next slide, please. Thank you. I just wanted to show you quickly, I think these are sort of out of order, but that's okay. Today you got a large communication from the district. And as Mr. Pace said at the beginning, the Board of Education last night approved our Return to Learn roadmap. We know that it was not met with without some consternation that we would be starting the year online at West Bloomfield High School. And they're going to talk about that tonight and why that was the decision that we made and that their Classroom to Cloud team made and recommendation to the Board of Education. But in that document that was sent today, you'll see their updates for elementary, middle school, high school, OEC, Lakers Online. The schedules are there so that you're able to access those. Information about special education is there as well. So you will definitely want to read the entire document that we sent today, because there are several links that are very important as we get ready to return to school. The first page looks like this. It does describe phases 1 through 3, phase 4, which is currently where we are in our region. And so that is the guidelines that we're operating under at this time. And then obviously what phase 5 will look like. So you want to make sure that you take a look at that document that went out today. So I think I missed one of my Lakers Online slides. And so my team was helping before, and I'm just going to talk a bit about it a little bit. The schedule for Lakers Online is really, thank you, there we go, is a Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday schedule that you're going to see when the high school talks about their online schedule is going to look very similar. So the definition of synchronous and asynchronous obviously is live instruction. So when those teachers are providing direct instruction, they're available for student questions, there's discussion and breakout rooms, all those sorts of things are taking place during the synchronous instruction, which is that 9 o'clock hour, that 9 o'clock time, the 11 o'clock time, and the 1:30 time. And then the asynchronous time that is built in is when your child would be doing independent work. That does not mean that they need to sit in front of their Chromebook for the entire time. They can do the synchronous piece, log in, get attendance, participate in that class, and that is the expectation. But then obviously if there's ongoing independent work and homework, it doesn't necessarily have to happen at 10 o'clock. So they can get up, they can take a break, they can have a snack, they can do whatever it is they need to do, and then come back and be ready to go for instruction at 11. Same is true for Tuesday. You will notice that on Wednesday, no differently than what you've seen for our K-8 schedule and OEC schedule, Wednesday for Lakers Online will be all asynchronous instruction. There will be assignments, there will be expectations, there will be attendance taken. All those pieces are going to happen on Wednesday, but no differently than our teachers that are going to be in the buildings delivering instruction. Lakers Online teachers will have a staff meeting. They'll have professional learning community time with their colleagues from across the district, and then they will also have planning time as well. So we wanted you to see that. A cool thing that we're developing right now that is a little different for us in Lakers Online is there will be a seminar class that is different than what you're going to see from West Bloomfield High School that will really talk about college and career readiness, where students will work on their EDPs, which is a requirement for graduation for every student in the state of Michigan, and when we really attend to those social emotional needs. So there'll be some lessons, there'll be some activities that they'll be doing. So there will be instruction and credit earned for that seminar period in Lakers Online. So even though you're only seeing 6 hours, the 7th hour is that seminar, and there will be credit that will be attached to that because they'll be doing their college and career readiness piece, which will be very important. So we're working to develop that, but we're excited to be able to offer that. So we wanted you to see that it is manageable for a student to be in Lakers Online, but it is still quite rigorous. So you're having 3 classes per day, both synchronous and asynchronous instruction. There is time built in for lunch. There is that flexibility when you can then kids can get up and go do other things and then come back. But we wanted you to see that is what the Lakers Online schedule looks like. Moving on, Mr. Pace. These are our teacher expectations for Lakers Online and also those student expectations. So there will be whole group instruction. There will be small group instruction. There will be breakout rooms and obviously discussion boards, all those sorts of things. So they will be expected to log in during those times that have been indicated. The teachers will be live. They'll be in front of their Chromebooks. And there will be a number of opportunities for students to interact with their peers and with their teacher throughout the course of the day. There we will maintain the scope and sequence pacing of the district. Lakers Online will not operate under its own kind of curriculum. We want students to be on pace, no differently than if they were sitting in a classroom at West Bloomfield High School. And so our teachers in Lakers Online will be working with their colleagues across the district to make sure their pace is the same, they're following the same syllabi, they're doing similar assessments, and that we are aligned in our standards. So it is while an online experience is really essentially the same as they would have if they were in West Bloomfield High School. Obviously, there is it's going to mirror as much in-person instruction as possible. I think that our students and staff have become quite well versed in Zoom, unfortunately, we all have. And so I feel like they'll be confident and they'll be able to have that in-person instruction activity. We've talked about giving the teachers opportunities to have their materials in front of them. So if they're going to demonstrate a lab, or they're going to do any number of things where they might need a whiteboard, they'll have those materials to support those students as well. You can see that the teacher workday is from 8 a.m. to 3:10 p.m. for Lakers Online. And there's a reason for this. One, you'll also notice that our high school students are not starting until 9 a.m. That's probably a better time than 7 a.m., as many of you would agree, I'm sure. And so they will be working 8 to 3. They need to have a defined, teachers and students, a start and end day. This is not meant to go on for hours and hours. It's not meant to be all consuming. There does have to be that separation. That does not mean that within Lakers Online, all assignments are due at 3:10 or those sorts of things. It just means the end of that day. And so we want students to have that balance between schoolwork and obviously outside activities and time with family and those kinds of things. For students, that attendance is expected and it will be taken each class period. So unlike the spring, and you're going to hear about this when the high school talks as well, there is the attendance counts. This is instruction. Grades matter and performance matter, because it's not going to be this automatic pass just because the governor said so. We were operating under an entirely different system in the spring. So those expectations exist for students, that they will need to communicate with the teacher if they're having tech issues or if they're just having issues in general with their instruction, that they really need to be advocates for themselves when it comes to their online coursework and what they might be struggling with. They need to participate in collaboration and small group work. This is not turn my camera off and I'll do it later, or I'm not coming to class. The expectation is that you're there and that you're participating. You have to adhere to the student code of conduct and an academic integrity piece as well. So it is your work, it's your own work and authentic, and that you are using our technology appropriately. All those things still come into play. And that you really define that dedicated at-home learning place. I found with my own high school children that their bedrooms are probably not their best dedicated at-home learning space. So much to their chagrin, when they have online homework to do, they both took online courses this summer, then they came downstairs, they had to sit at the kitchen table, and that was their workspace. Just because it helped them focus and kept them off social media as much as possible while they were learning. So we wanted you to see that that's what those student and teacher expectations are moving forward. You know, and you're going to hear that the platform that we're using, we've talked a lot about, is Canvas. That is no differently for all of our students K-12, whether they're in Lakers Online or not. Our teachers have really done an excellent job integrating Canvas, learning it in a very short period of time. It will be ready to roll out for both students and their families. So you will be able to download the app. You'll be able to track your students' progress as you go. And we're excited. It has a lot of great tools. It integrates Zoom. It integrates a number of tools that our teachers are familiar with and that they're using. It allows students to do video. It allows us to do a number of really awesome things. And so that is the tool that we'll be using. So in the next couple of weeks and at the end of the slideshow, you're going to see an opportunity for you as parents to access Canvas for the first time and running kind of a Canvas 101. So what should I look for? How do I create my account? How do I set up my alerts? We'll be doing that for you in the next couple of weeks. You also saw, if you went through the communication that we sent today, that Chromebooks will be distributed starting next Tuesday by building. So I would ask that you go through and carefully read that communication that was sent today about when you will pick up technology. It will be distributed from West Bloomfield High School. It's a drive up only. So you pull up, you show your ID, and they hand you a Chromebook. That's how it works. So you're not getting out of the car, you're not coming into the building. There's very limited interaction. We ask that you wear masks when you come, and that our staff will be masked as well. And so we're excited that we're able to get those brand new Chromebooks. We expect that all students pick up a brand new Chromebook. This spring, we started with everybody has one, and we have a couple laptops at home. We don't really need a district issued device. Quite honestly, families do. When you're going to be learning online entirely, it is better that we provide that for you than to rely on your technology at home, because other people need to be able to use it. So you should plan to come and pick up your technology in the next couple of weeks. The schedule did go out today, so you can plan. It is a full day, so you have ample opportunity to come in during the time that works for you and during the course of the day. And our staff, as you probably have heard, has been really working on their professional development that we built in Canvas. And so they've been doing professional learning on blended. So when we are able to return, how might we continue to use Canvas, or how will we continue to use Canvas? So students are watching instruction at home, doing readings at home, and then coming to class prepared. Really will be the same, even though the high school is going to be online. So when you come to those Zooms at West Bloomfield High School, or you come to the Zooms for Lakers Online, you've already done a number of that work at home ahead of time, and you're ready to have those discussions. They've worked on social emotional learning, on anti-racism. They're building their content, so they're actually building their courses in Canvas right now. And then they've obviously learned Canvas because we've asked them to do all of these things. So the best way to learn things is to use it. And our teachers have done an excellent job doing those things. You're also going to find that on our website, there is about a 10-minute screencast if you want to know more about it, which you might not yet because you can't see it, and you haven't got to experience it from a parent or a student perspective. But when you do, and you get your Chromebook and we send your login information, and if you need to kind of do an overview of what you should see and how you're going to navigate the system, we do have a screencast on our website. So if you want to see more about Canvas, it was an excellent decision, I feel, on the part of the Board of Education to authorize us to move to Canvas. Google was fine. Google Classroom did what it needed to do in the spring. Canvas provides much better opportunity for two-way communication between teachers and students, for communication among their peers within the tool, better ways to submit work. So we're excited about it. Of course, there's going to be a learning curve, but I can guarantee you that your students will be able to do that very quickly because they're very tech savvy and they learn things way faster than what we do. But we'll provide support for them as well. And those are just some more screenshots. You can keep going, Eric. That's fine. Thank you. So I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Pace at this time.
All right. So now we're going to shift the focus from Lakers Online and what their schedule is and what it means to be a Lakers Online student, and then look at what specifically West Bloomfield High School is doing when we engage in fall learning remotely. So as you may have learned already, West Bloomfield High School is going to be conducting our classes online through Canvas, which was just described, through phase 4 of the governor's plan. We're going to go into those phases and what it looks like as we move in and out of different phases. Part of our plan, though, is going to be live daily instruction following our traditional block schedule, and then opportunities built in for support and assistance. I want to make sure that one key thing you're going to notice, and we're going to say it again and again, is that West Bloomfield High School will return to in-person instruction 5 days per week when our region moves to phase 5. That is not true of Lakers Online. Lakers Online will remain an online setting, and we're going to go into that in more detail here shortly. So for our considerations in going back to school, in just a minute, Ashley Larkin's going to describe our process and what we went through to land at this conclusion. But if you've not already gone through the 63-page Michigan Safe Schools Return to School Roadmap, it is an important read and something to be familiar with. And what you see here on the screen are these 6 phases. And within those 6 phases, it has some of the concerns about what's happening with COVID and what we need to do to stay safe. And in there, you're going to see things that are required in each phase and things that are strongly recommended. And one of the common questions we've received is, how can other schools say that they're going to come back in person and West Bloomfield High School says they're going to be remote? What's different? In talking with the principals in neighboring districts and throughout the county, and looking at some of their plans that have not been fully released yet, but are still preliminary. The big thing you're going to notice is that we are, as a district, really adamant that we're going to follow not only the requirements, but the strongly recommended guidelines to keep our community safe. And in doing that, Ashley's going to describe some of the things that we went through, but we did not find a way to, through all the different exhausted options that we have, to be able to bring students back safely and then meet both the required and the strongly recommended requirements, or recommendations, I should say, in phase 4. And so in doing that, we wanted to make sure that we made the decision to be able to focus our time and our energy on how to deliver instruction in the best way for our students, and also do that in a way that keeps our community safe. So Ashley, if you want to describe our process.
Thank you. So as Mr. Pace described, we had a building C2C team, and that team was comprised of various stakeholders within the high school: teachers, administrative members, secretaries, parents, and a variety of other members. And our job was really to be well-versed in this roadmap that the governor put out, understand the required and the strongly recommended features of each phase, and then to look to solutions. So we spent an exhaustive amount of time as a group, as pairs, as individuals, bouncing ideas off of one another to figure out ways that we could safely get all students into the building at some point while adhering to, again, both the recommended, strongly recommended, and the required features of the plan. And so I'm not going to go through every plan in detail, but I want everybody to understand that we all want to be back, right? Every single person on this panel, we know students and parents want to be back. But the reality of the situation is that we could not find a way to safely bring back every student in some fashion and staff member while meeting all of the features of the plan. And so we did look at everything that you see here, plus some other additional plans as well. And the roadblock that we really kept hitting was the strongly recommended feature of socially distancing. And it was just not possible when you consider time in the classroom, when you consider passing time and students moving throughout the building, lunches, and various other activities. It really just came down to safety and doing what was best for our students and staff. And so with that said, once we made the decision to go fully virtual, the C2C team then looked at what is the best way to meet students' needs academically and teachers' needs as well. And so if you have been participating in Zoom meetings lately, you know that it can be exhausting to be on Zoom meetings all day long. There's a ton of research on screen fatigue in teenagers and even adults as well. And so we used all of that to make these decisions when planning. We also wanted the schedule to mimic what a typical day would be like in some fashion for our high school students, so that when we return to phase 5, it wouldn't be as big of a shift or disruption, and it would be something that they were used to. So you can see that our schedule follows the traditional block schedule of even and odd days. We do have about 50 minutes reserved per class period with a 10-minute passing time. And then we have time built in for lunch as well. In the afternoons each day on Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, and Friday, you're going to see a 1-hour seminar time built in. And that time is optional for students to check in, receive extra help and support, but it may also be required at some points for students. If a teacher's feeling like a student may need additional support, they'll schedule that time individually with the student so that they can receive that extra help. And then in addition to that, we expect about 50 minutes of asynchronous learning per class period, which means that they would be working on their own remotely throughout the day on some assignments for those classes. On Wednesdays, the students will be working completely asynchronous, so they'll be working online. There will be no real-time live instruction. And again, I know we mentioned this previously, but on the Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, during those class periods each day, they will be live. So teachers will be delivering live instruction, and attendance is mandatory. We expect all students to attend those live sessions.
I would like to add to that, similar to what you saw in the Lakers Online schedule, our teacher workday is going to be 8 to 3. And so the 8 to 9 period and then the 2 to 3 period are going to be when teachers can schedule family meetings if necessary, provide small group scheduled support or individual support as necessary, allow retakes or real targeted interventions that'll be outside of that seminar, which is going to be more drop-in, unstructured, provide question and answer, homework help, kind of in the moment, which may not be appropriate for some of those more intense interventions. So we're building time in not only for students to receive live instruction and interaction with their teachers and peers, but also to receive the supports necessary to be successful in this environment. So a couple key questions that we'd like to address. The first one that came up quite a bit was what's going to be different now from what we saw in the spring. Number one is going to be live daily instruction for all classes. And right along with that would be the full block schedule. If you were here in the spring, we had focus days with only 1 to 2 classes doing more intense focus, the rest being completely asynchronous. And we have made the shift to be mimicking our traditional schedule with that live daily instruction following that block schedule. You're also going to see increased access to materials, supports, and also to rigor. We had to make a shift on a dime out of necessity back in the spring, and I think we pivoted well, and we provided opportunities for students, but at this point in time, we're ready to advance what we do and be able to really up our game in the way that we interact with our content and with our students online, provide them an experience that's going to mirror as best as possible what they receive in the classroom. Also, there's no waiver on the state for attendance, like you may have seen come down late in the spring last year. So the attendance in these live sessions will count, just like daily attendance counts in the traditional school setting. And then our grades, deadlines for work, accountability for work, and so on are going to follow our traditional high school standards. We pride ourselves in having high standards for student achievement and for meeting and exceeding the state standards for achievement. And that's something that we're going to continue to expect out of our staff and out of our students, remote and as well as when we transition back. Outside of that, you heard the Lakers Online presentation and then some of the shifts for WBHS. So I want to make sure that I can explicitly say what some of the key differences are. So for West Bloomfield High School, we return in phase 5. So what that means is, hypothetically, let's say it's October 15th and the governor's made a decision that our region's back in phase 5. We're going to provide at least a 2-week transition period to get things up and running and to get students and staff prepared, and we'll return to live in-person instruction in the building. We're going to offer via remote to start and then back in phase 5 in the building, our full course offerings as you would typically see from West Bloomfield High School. And that's going to be all West Bloomfield High School teachers with our school district curriculum. In Lakers Online, if the governor moves us back to phase 5 and it's October 15th, that has no impact on what happens in Lakers Online. Those students will remain online no matter which phase we are in. And there's going to be a sampling, it's a robust sampling, but a sampling of the course offerings from WBHS that may not include all that's offered in the traditional high school setting, but you'll notice some similarities, West Bloomfield High School teachers and West Bloomfield School District curriculum. We really want to make sure we provide a robust experience in both settings. Next, can we return from West Bloomfield High School to Lakers Online, or from Lakers Online, I should say. So any current West Bloomfield High School student, any student that's resident or schools of choice that is already in the West Bloomfield School District for traditional schooling can look to return at the earliest at the end of each semester. Okay. There is a group of families that have applied for schools of choice directly for Lakers Online only. Those students must remain online for the duration of their time in West Bloomfield. Now, if at the end of the school year or when our schools of choice window reopens, they could apply for schools of choice through STEAM. And then if meeting criteria, they could then transition back to the high school building, but there's no guarantee on that. So again, if our students cannot transition mid-semester because they'd like to then be in the building, it's going to be potential differences in pacing, hopefully not, but potentially. And more importantly, we need to make sure we can staff our buildings and our online school appropriately, and then provide continuous education for all students involved. So Vice, on the other side of this here, can we move to Lakers Online from West Bloomfield when we go to phase 5? So you're happy with the online environment, and now you're not comfortable going back. It's going to follow the same set of standards. So students may look to move to Lakers Online only at the transition in semester, but not during or in the middle of any semester. So if you select West Bloomfield High School, we move to phase 5 on October 15th, you will then be expected to attend in-person instruction once we transition back after a couple of weeks. There will not be a remote option at that time. Now I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Pierce.
Thank you very much. First of all, I want to thank everybody for the phone calls and the emails regarding questions with athletics. I understand the concern over whether we're going to have athletics, specifically whether we're going to have a fall sports season. Please understand that safety is our #1 priority. Making sure that our student athletes are safe, our coaches, everybody involved, their families. So that is at the forefront of everything that we do in terms of decisions. We are following the MHSAA as well as the NFHS, so the Michigan High School Athletic Association, as well as the National Federation. So to give you kind of an overview of where we're at right now, we are still currently in a modified step 2 stage of the reopening of school sports guidance document. Now, what this step does is it limits the amount of outdoor activity that can take place with the restrictions that we have in place, and also prohibits indoor facilities from being used. Now, please understand that this is fluid. Things can change, and they're likely to change. The MHSA is expected to announce updates to the current protocols and guidance tomorrow, Wednesday, July 29th. So hopefully we'll have some type of update about how we're going to move forward tomorrow. The fall schedule for athletics is in place with plans to move forward with the seasons. So the MHSA a week and a half ago came out and said that they were going to keep on pushing for the fall sports seasons to operate as normal. Now, when I say normal, I mean playing the games and having the events like they normally would have. Obviously, there's going to be protocols that are put in place that protect the safety of everybody that's around. So we don't know if this is going to be a limitation on fans. We don't know what this is going to look like, but hopefully the announcement tomorrow will give us a little more insight into what that will be. For those of you that have had questions about whether members of Lakers Online will be eligible to participate in athletics, absolutely they will be, provided that they would have been eligible if they still had been eligible in our traditional school setting. So if they would have had eligibility this upcoming year, had we had just the traditional setting of 5 days a week and going to school like normal, they will be eligible for Lakers Online. They're West Bloomfield School District students, and they will maintain their eligibility. Just a little update for you. Fall sports do begin the week of August 10th, with most sports holding their first practice and tryouts on Wednesday, August 12th. So it is right around the corner. That's why we're looking for some more guidance here from the MHSAA. We do have our protocols in place. As you know, there have been, as many of you know, there have been a number of teams that have been working out and conditioning during this time. And they do have to follow a number of steps to ensure the safety of all the participants. So that's kind of an overview of where we're at right now, and we hope to have more updates starting tomorrow.
Mr. Pierce, can you add, you talked about eligibility for students that are Lakers Online. Can you talk very briefly about students that may be new to our district that are coming in through Lakers Online and what it means to transfer in, what eligibility looks like?
Yeah, so if you're a school of choice student that is coming in through Lakers Online, the eligibility is a little bit different. If you participated in a sport last year, you will be ineligible to participate in that same sport this year. That's the MHSAA rule for transferring of schools, unless you meet one of the 9 exemptions. If you have a question about whether you meet one of those, please don't hesitate to email me, and I will address each individual case.
Thank you. So when it comes to phase 5, when we get moved there as a region, as I described earlier, we're going to be having a minimum of 2-week transition period in order to get ourselves, our school, our students, and our staff ready to bring students back in. At that time, though, we are still going to follow all the requirements and strongly recommended guidance of the governor's roadmap for phase 5. But that will allow us to have all students in 5 days per week in person, with some precautions taken. Our planning team is going to continue to work on our specific return conditions and what that might look like, as well as starting to, get to the details of this online learning plan and what it means to be in attendance, and, really developing a robust curriculum and content that the teachers have been working on Canvas already right now. And then Deanna, back to you.
Thank you. So I just want a couple of things I want to touch base so that you know, and kind of clarify some things that maybe I missed when we were talking about Lakers Online. Many of our questions have been, what should I do? And should we do Lakers online? Should we start it at the high school? Why are we doing two different things if essentially everybody's online? And what is the best option for my family? And quite frankly, that is a family decision. You all know your children, you know your family situation, you know your comfort about sending your kids back to school in the building. So you'll need to make those decisions based on what's best for you and for your family. We really have tried to make sure that we've provided a number of opportunities that will work. We know that not coming back to school is really, really hard. I know that I've gotten many emails and phone calls, as has the high school administrative team, wanting to know why we're not doing like other neighboring districts might be. And honestly, it comes down to exactly what Ashley talked about, is that we ran many scenarios. They spent hours and hours, and not just the administrative team and not central office, but teachers and other parents and support personnel trying to make sure that we could get kids back in, and it just can't be done safely. And we need to make sure that what we don't do is expose your children or expose staff members inadvertently when we know that it was just too big a risk to take. I also can tell you that what we know is that continuity of learning is very important. So we're already seeing, if you look at what's happening at neighboring high schools with their athletic teams, with football in particular, what happened at Michigan State this week with their football team, that if you have someone going to school at State, you got an update today about what their course schedules are going to look like, and they're primarily online because they too are struggling to figure out how they can safely bring students back to campus. It is a situation that no one wants to be in. And I think what I would ask, and I know what the administrative team here at the high school would ask, is that we are doing the very best that we can with the situation that was given to us. We don't control COVID. We don't control the governor's decisions. We don't do any of those things. We simply are asked to then take what we know and the guidelines that we're given and create a plan that will work for West Bloomfield. It may not work, and you may not be excited about it, and you may be lamenting what you're seeing from other districts, but I can tell you that I am confident that we are making the best decision we can to keep kids safe and to keep staff safe. We have worked with our teachers. Your teachers will be in the building. The high school teachers will be here each day delivering their instruction. They want to have you in front of them just as much as what the kids want to be back in the high school. But we need to make sure that we can do that in the safest way possible. When we move to phase 5, we will bring students back. K-12, we will bring students back to in-person instruction. But right now, we didn't want to start school at West Bloomfield High School, have an exposure, have somebody that has positive cases or multiple positive cases, and then we have to immediately close, because that's what would happen. And then we move to online, and we're home for 14 days, and then we bring everybody back, and then we have it again. That is not good for anybody. That is not feasible. That is not good instruction. And so we feel confident starting online is the best way for the year. You'll also see, as you follow neighboring districts from across Oakland County, everybody's all over the place. It really has become just what do we need to do for our community? So you see plans where people have already committed fully online K-12 until January. You see plans where people have committed until October. You've seen plans where they are trying to come back for 5 days of instruction right now. But you also saw today, if you watched the governor's discussion today, her press conference, that what happens in the next 2 weeks will determine whether or not we come back at all. And I think she's giving a clear indication that is certainly a possibility that no one will be returning for in-person instruction. So I ask that you give us a little bit of grace. That we understand that this is a grieving process in many ways, that we are all unhappy with the situation that we're in, and that there's a lot of anger and frustration. But we really have spent hours, and this team in particular has given many, many hours of their time, evenings, weekends, 7 days a week, whenever we've needed them. They've risen to the challenge, and they tried so hard to make this work. And quite frankly, we're making the best decision because we have to keep our students and our staff safe. So for us, we'll continue to monitor those governor's communications, okay? So we will let you know when we know. If things change, you will know right away and what our plans are as well. You will see an update coming tomorrow from the high school administrative team, as well as all of our buildings, with specific information about transportation for our K-8 students, what those schedules look like, how you're going to access your technology, some additional parent opportunities coming up around Canvas. So please make sure you're monitoring all the communication that we're sending. We're going to share a link later today for you to ask your questions. You know, I think the question that we've answered, and maybe not the answer you wanted to hear, but that we answered, is we're doing this for student and staff safety. And this is where we're going to be because we're following the governor's roadmap that is in phase 4 and the required and the strongly recommended. And at this point in time, with those expectations, we're going to remain online at West Bloomfield High School. If you want to ask questions about some of the things around scheduling or small group intervention or opportunities to come into the building, if you needed to actually meet with a teacher, we would welcome those questions. Some of those things are in the works, certainly. Lakers Online closes, so the deadline to indicate your interest in or your commitment to Lakers Online is Friday at the close of business. So at 5 p.m. on Friday, I will be closing the Lakers Online application. So if you were unsure before, if you're still on the fence, you have a couple days, but you do need to make your decision by Friday at 5 p.m. Additionally, we want you to know that we will be in communication with a parent Lakers Online family orientation on Thursday, August the 13th. We're doing 2, one at 10 a.m. and 6 p.m. So we will get your students scheduled quickly so that they know that you know what their schedules are going to look like, and then we'll make sure that you have access to those classes for that orientation as well. And we're also doing Canvas training for our parents, kind of Canvas 101, on Thursday, August the 20th at 7 p.m. As with all of our webinars, they will be recorded so you can watch them whenever you need. But we want to make sure that we are continuing to communicate our plans. I hope you also noticed that we have communicated multiple times throughout the summer. We've had webinars, we've had Q&As, we've had focus groups, we've done all of those. We've sent out communications, probably too much in some cases for some of you, but we have tried to be as transparent as possible in our planning. And so again, we appreciate the support that you give to us and the trust that you give to us that we're making the best decisions with the information that we have at this point in time. And that as soon as things change, when we move to phase 5, if we have to move back to phase 3, that we will do so with certainly good planning, that we will communicate it with you and that you'll know exactly what those next steps will be. We want to thank you tonight for coming. This recording will be available online, so we'll put it on the website so you're able to see that as well. We will send out the link that asks for you to give your questions, and someone from the high school administrative team or from my office, if need be, will certainly answer those questions for you. Also know that we're doing the best we can. The last form we sent out had roughly 240 questions that came back. It takes a while to work through all those. And I can tell you that we are trying to get themes and we're trying to answer those high level questions, hence the reason for this conversation tonight. If you have specific things around special education, you have specific things around your students' maybe 504 plan, if you have specific questions that really are about maybe your child's AP course selections, please reach out to the high school administrative team or your child's counselor. That's who's going to best be able to answer those questions. Those individual questions are best handled at the building level. And so that would probably be what I would suggest. Mr. Pace or team, anything else you want to share?
Yeah, I'd like to add, I know we have some people on right now that are going to be coming to the high school for the first time. And, you know, whether you're from out of district, but more specifically as ninth graders, your first student coming to high school. I'm sure this isn't what you imagined or your student imagined, you know, entering high school for the first time. I know I'm experiencing that with my oldest starting kindergarten for the first time and, you know, really not knowing what that entails and knowing that it's going to look different. So Ms. Larkin and I met with our peer mentorship teachers today, and we typically host a freshman day for some team building and orientation and getting to know some student mentors as well as getting to know the building and what it's like to be a high school student. That is something we're still planning. So it's just going to look a little different. So the mentor should be in contact with the freshmen semi-regularly to do some check-ins, but we're going to postpone that freshman day and that orientation and team building until we move to phase 5. And in that lag time we have in getting ourselves ready to transition back to the building is when we'll best orient our freshmen to a high school experience. So I want to make sure you know that that's not being ignored, but we're trying to cater that to what's safe and what best meets the needs of our freshmen that are coming to us. So I know others may have something else to add. I just want to thank you all for taking your time out tonight to join us and reiterate Ms. Barish's comments that if you do have questions, please fill out the form or reach out to us directly if there's very specific questions. We want to make sure that we're able to meet your needs and help you make an informed decision by Friday.
Thanks. Anybody else? Okay. Thanks, everybody. Have a great evening. I'll look for that link in your email shortly, probably later this evening. Thank you.